There's so much that we don't know here in Papua New Guinea. People can't be sent to a language group that we don't know about. When a new translator comes, they tend to go to the places that they can find out about, that we have done research on.
So before going on a survey, we need to look at what information is already known so that we can investigate what isn't known yet. For that background research piece, it can take up to 6 months in some cases.
I enjoy most of the time in the office. I like learning, and I really like researching things that not a lot of people know about, but it can get tedious and it can make your eyes sore staring at a computer all day long.
Manus is in the very northern part of the country, pretty isolated all out there in the ocean by itself, quite close to the equator, quite toasty. Our goals for the Manus survey were to look at language vitality and also the relatedness of the languages in that area.
Our team was very fortunate to get to ride a little dinghy to all of these different coastal villages. So we were on the ocean every single day.
Probably my favorite part about language survey is getting out and doing field research. We get to go to a lot of very remote locations that are very difficult to get to. The Manus survey was particularly difficult because plans kept changing. The whole island of Manus was out of gasoline. We pre-ordered it through a local contact so that there was a barrel waiting for us when we arrived. If we hadn't been able to connect with local people, our trip would have been over before it started.
Phone service went out before we got there, and so we were not able to contact any of the people ahead of time to let them know that we were coming. So when we got there, no one was expecting us. We had to be flexible with our research schedule and make new plans kind of on the fly.
Going on survey, it does involve the need for flexibility. We often don't really know what we're going to encounter. And on this occasion, we were mostly along the coastline, but at the very end, we learned about another village somewhat inland. We didn't know how to get there.
We took a boat into this kind of lagoon area and asked a man who was fishing there, "We're looking for this village, do you know where it is?" And he kind of guided us up a river. It took us about 2 hours to get up the river. Yeah, it was exciting, feeling like we were going where no one had been before. That village in particular, I don't think they had seen any outsiders for maybe 50 years.
So after a survey trip is over, we draw what conclusions can be drawn from the data and write it in a report. The translators on this occasion reported that the data was very useful. They had been operating on certain information for about 40 years that was shown to be wrong by our survey. I've tried to encourage people to consider survey long-term because having experience, having context helps you to interpret what you're seeing accurately. There is a real benefit to having surveyors who commit to the long-term.
But being part of a team is one of the most important parts of the job. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses, and our work is of higher quality because we work together.
I'd say you need to be adventurous, you need to be flexible, and I'd say it's also important to be a learner, somebody who enjoys doing the research and the office work.
I think it's really exciting to learn new things and to go new places, and especially I really enjoy giving a voice to people who otherwise wouldn't have one.